it's time for the big city skyline urban life opening for Jason Takes Manhattan. Oh, yeah. Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Shado, the internet personality who lives out in the middle of fucking nowhere. And today on...
The Summer of Freddy vs. Jason!
That's it? I already did that one anyway. Shut up. I'm putting them Patreon monies to good use, I see. Shut up! We're digging into the 15th movie of the summer and the 8th in the Friday the 13th franchise. Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Released in 1989 on July 28th. Hey, that's my 6th birthday. Anyway, the movie was intended to be the last film in the series. Again, intent on going out with a bang, they decided to bring Jason Voorhees to the Big Apple itself, New York City. But because of the very limited budget of only $5 million, they had to cut back on a lot of the shit they wanted to do. This means they not only didn't get many locations in New York, but most of the shots in New York were actually filmed in Vancouver. Either way, the story's about a big-ass group of teenagers who take a trip to New York. Jason Voorhees climbs aboard, though, and begins the totally new activity of killing teenagers outside of a wooded area. This also is notable as the lowest-grossing film of the Paramount-produced Friday the 13th series, even though they went so far as to plug the movie on Arsenio Hall.
You killed 16 people. I don't know why I'm laughing, man.
Nevertheless, let's take a look at Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, and see if it, maybe was judged too harshly for its time, or perhaps was simply a doomed concept from the start. The movie opens on New York, with all the recognizable landmarks, like loiterers, a mugging in a back alley, filthy rat-infested waste, and last but not least, drug addicts in the dark. Really not selling New York as much of a tourist destination here, movie. Fortunately, we suddenly teleport over to Crystal Lake for the real start of this movie, introducing two teenagers in love, Jim and Susie, played by Todd Kettlecott and Tiffany Paulson, respectively.
Gotta throw the anchor over.
Okay.
Of all the coincidences, not only did they have a high-voltage power line running through Crystal Lake despite it being a rural area and probably much cheaper than just build around it, but it just so happens that the teen's anchor landed right on it! What a coincidence. Even though he's already gonna get some, Jim feels the need to tell a ghost story to Susie to have her attracted to his manly nature of keeping her safe. It just so happens to be the movie's backstory, though.
There was this boy named Jason Voorhees. Drowned in Crystal Lake about 30 years ago.
Well, yeah, going by when this movie came out, but when you think about it, it should be set in like 2000 to 2002, so that would be more like 40 years ago.
A bunch of years went by, and everyone forgot about it. And that's when the murder started to happen.
No, the first murders happened the following year. They stabbed two counselors to death. They shut down Crystal Lake over it. It's pretty easy to remember. They opened Friday the 13th with that. But he must have forgotten about that when talking about the killings that take place in the original movie, before Jason came back from the dead to kill all the teenagers in the area. That's enough exposition, though. It's time for fucking, and Jason to be resurrected once again. Through a huge burst of electricity. Again. Now I'm concerned that there's going to be a Friday the 13th movie that ends with Jason being arrested, and the next one starts with him getting the electric chair. When their anger knocks out the power of the obviously abandoned summer camp, Susie tells Jim she thinks she heard something and asks him to go investigate. Never mind Swamp Thing crawling aboard. Besides, his fingers are poking through the gloves. The real threat is known soon enough. The budget is so low they couldn't afford gore effects this time around. Obviously, this is because the killer was actually Jim, and actually wasn't killing Susie. He just picked up that Jason-styled hockey mask from the local Explain How the Hell Jason Got the Mask Back shop, complete with a hatchet cut for extra authenticity. Thus, when they go back to teenage fucking and Jason climbs aboard, it doesn't take long before he looks dressed to kill. I don't even know why they bothered with the electricity. We all know this is what brought Jason back from the dead anyway. And what sends Jim ahead to the dead when Jason misses with the spear gun, so he just rips his fucking guts out with the spear gun itself. In theory, obviously that's just the plastic tubing from the spear gun that's covered in blood now, but I mean, with a low budget, you can't really be too sure. Susie tries to run and hide, but being in a boat in the middle of Crystal Lake, there's not many places to escape towards, so she just hides in a small, easily discovered compartment. Jason, I know you just woke up, but what the fuck are you doing? Killing a teenager isn't like threading a needle. Now what the hell am I complaining about? Susie, what are you doing? How are you not just dodging and running from this extremely slow slasher villain? But, you know, on the plus side, I think I just figured out how this has the longest running time of all the Friday the 13th movies. Unless you count the killer cut of the remake, I guess. With the opening murders out of the way, we suddenly fast forward to the following morning to introduce more important characters. Most notably Rennie, played by Jensen Daggett, who is receiving a gift from her teacher, Colleen, played by Barbara Bingham.
Stephen King supposedly used it in high school.
I don't know what to say.
Well, when you find yourself in desperation or misery, a worthless bag of bones, unable to find the words to say needful things, you could always just stick to finders keepers. She's here getting on a fantastic cruise, while the boat full of dead teenager drifts by, unnoticed by anyone except for Deck Hand, played by Alex Dykun. We've got to shift over to more important things, though, like Rennie's Uncle Charles, played by Peter Richmond.
We never should have brought her here.
It's up to Rennie to decide what she wants to do.
Yeah, the original idea for the film was to have Tina return and have the social awkwardness and caretakers make a little more sense, and the Stephen King pen a bit ironic, I guess. But they say that Lar Park Lincoln asked for a modest raise, so at that point they said fuck it, and none of the characters from Part 7 return. Except for Jason Voorhees, who at least is still played by Kane Hodder. The captain of the Lazarus is Admiral Robertson, played by Warren Munson. He's leading the graduating class's party boat all the way to New York. Or rather his son, Sean, played by Scott Reeves. Except for the fact that he sucks dick at being a seaman.
Send out the international maritime signal, followed by a security broadcast warning other ships that we are underway.
Damn, Dad wants me to be a ship captain. Doesn't he understand I have my own ambitions in life? Which are never really, hammered out here, so, I guess I want to spend it smoking weed and running from murderous psychopaths. There's young adults making bad decisions on this boat. After waiting long enough for Jason to climb aboard, everyone ignores Crazy Mr. Hand's warnings about doom and gloom to engage in luxury cruise activities teens everywhere love, like ribbon throwing, curling, skeet shooting, and dancing. None of these things particularly pique Sean's interest, that is until he realizes that Rennie has arrived, along with her dog Toby, played by Ace. He's very happy to see her, considering he bought her a present. Yeah, I went to the jewelry store asking for New York-themed necklaces. You wouldn't believe how hard they tried to sell me gold-plated guns and heroin, though. Seems Sean is Rennie's only friend here, though, especially considering Uncle Asshole just keeps driving home that he thinks she should get off the boat and head back to shore. But it's not like there's no one else here. We've got the punk rock girl JJ, played by Saffron Henderson, and her camera nerd Wayne, played by Martin Cummins. They're not an item, though. Wayne is far more interested in Tamara, who we don't see yet, but JJ outs as the cunt of the story.
She is a user.
She's sexy.
So what? So's this guitar.
Well, yeah, but you can't fuck a guitar. I stand corrected! Speaking of disturbing mental images, it seems that Rennie here has some trauma from her childhood that has left her terrified of water, which she wants to conquer. Problem is, Professor Dickhead here thinks it's not a good idea.
Facing your fear doesn't always conquer it.
So because there might be a chance that you'll face hardships and come out no better for it, obviously the best choice is to just avoid the hardships entirely and spend your life in terror of these feelings that are repressed and you don't understand and refuse to understand. It's been like 10 minutes since someone died, though, so JJ heads down to the best place she could practice her guitar, in the dark lower decks near the lab machinery. Unfortunately, it just so happens to be the perfect place for Jason Voorhees to practice his art as well. What to reference? Hard rock, heavy metal, Slash, Slayer. And come to think of it, How many musicians worth listening to don't reference death or murder in some way? Unfortunately, even with Stephen King's pen at her fingertips, Rennie can't seem to find any inspiration to write, whatever the hell she's trying to write. However, that's not to say her mind is empty of any strange ideas.
Toby!
Fuck it, bitch, I've seen enough of these movies, I'm out! Yeah, the dog's gone for most of the movie now. No bother, we just hop over to the boat's boxing ring, because they couldn't afford to film one in Madison Square Garden. Here we see Julius, played by Vincent Crane Dupre, beating the crap out of another guy. He's not credited for some reason, but it's David J. Cox who gets distracted by Tamara and Eva looking down from the skylight, played by Charlene Martin and Kelly Hu, respectively. Tamara's the mean girl, if you remember, so she drags the innocent Eva along for some cocaine, while miscellaneous boxer recovers in the sauna. For the rest of his life! They were right. These are relaxing. Never mind horrible death, though. The bitch brigade is out to cause trouble and toss Rennie overboard in a so-called accident because it'd be funny. But it isn't funny. Not when Ghost Kid is there to drag her under and torment her. It's weird as hell, but not really funny. It does give Uncle Cockface something else to talk about as he continues to insist they should never have brought Rennie on board. Damn kids trying to socialize instead of maintain a crippling fear of the outside world. Sending her off to clean up doesn't help much when she continues to see the spooky kid thing, but that doesn't really add anything right now, so instead we move over to Tamara's plans to pass her biology finals without actually having to write an essay.
Now you stop that. I mean, really?
I want to make sure I've labeled all my organs correctly.
You only marked 2, stomach's way too low, heart's way too high. Don't worry, I'm sure Jason will point out where you need improvement. Not the professor, though. He's more interested in telling Tamara she's in deep trouble for this. Problem was, Wayne caught just enough on camera to pull off some Michael Moore expose shit on him, ensuring Tamara will get just what she wants under pain of blackmail. Of course, that doesn't mean she's actually going to give the time of day to geeky old Wayne here, leaving him to sulk in the hallway, forever alone. But then again, in Friday the 13th, you're never truly alone. However, like Wayne, he seems far more interested in Tamara, ripping her clothes off before getting really up close and personal. Which is kind of disappointing. I mean, yeah, she earned her death, and you always like seeing the assholes die in slasher films, but you expect them to rank up a few more asshole points so the payoff is a little more satisfying. But Jason's on a roll and has no desire to slow down, so when the Admiral leaves the bridge for a moment as a storm rolls in... So before there was bullet time, there was just overly dramatic, really slow deaths, without screaming, because that might spoil the mood. This means that Mr. Robertson doesn't realize that Carlson is dead until he returns and assumes the position. How fucking high level is Jason at this point? He slit his throat with the blunt side of the machete! By the time Sean takes Rennie to the bridge to see if they can turn around because of the weird things she keeps feeling, they find out they can't, because the captain's fucking dead. Oh, and that's Sean's dad, which is kind of emotional, I guess. But when he calls the rest of the people to the bridge to warn them that someone's been going around all movie killing everyone, Mr. Hand warns them of the danger.
You're all gonna die. You're the last ones. He's come back for you.
The last what's? Freddy's the one who was killing Elm Street kids. Jason just kills anyone who comes to Crystal Lake. I suppose they did just go to Crystal Lake, but that would make them the latest ones, not necessarily the last ones. Mr. Moran decides that this must mean this man is the killer. Considering they have no fucking evidence of this, it goes nowhere with this accusation. The rest of the kids decide the best thing to do is collect a bunch of weapons and hunt down this maniac.
Tropical storm Harambe on the horizon. Tropical storm Harambe on the horizon. I repeat, this is not a drill. Ticks out. Ticks out.
Problem is, not all of them came to the bridge, so Eva heads back to find out what's keeping Tamara. Figuring out it's hard for her to attend roll call while perforated, she runs off. Right into Jason! Which means she has to keep running, ending up on the dance floor, where she suddenly forgets how to run because picking a door to escape out of is just, too hard, I guess? Now, Jason's method of dance is relatively simple, but very effective at taking her breath away. Picking her up off the ground, he finishes with a classic corpse toss. He's not the only one ready to kill, though. As we already mentioned, the teens aboard are collecting axes and shotguns to hunt Jason down. Even Wayne, despite him being more interested in turning this into a found footage film, even after a random steam burst knocks his glasses off. Well then, looks like it's time to rewind and overwrite some of this tape. I guess that works too. Wayne does get to run and realize the error of his ways before this all ends, though. Wait, this is a Friday the 13th movie, and electricity has brought Jason back twice, so at this point it's kind of just a 50-50 shot whether it resurrects you or kills you. Wayne turns out to be much more flammable than anticipated, spreading all over the lower decks. With that in mind...
Oh, what's that? Fire alarm!
Good guy Jason, always looking out for the community. Professor Useless decrees it must be the killer who pulled the alarm, which is actually right, but then he says it's to scare them and send them into a trap, and that's debatable, really. Point is, Jason is already above deck now, fighting Miles, played by Gordon Curie. Is it just me, or has Jason been working on his throwing arm? I mean, if team throwing was an Olympic sport... Okay, that was only worth a bronze, Voorhees. The kid might have lived. Besides Jason going on a rampage, Rennie is still having weird hallucinations, and the boat's fucking sinking, so Colleen gathers up the rest of the teenagers and leaves them to die.
I want you to stay here until I get back with the others, all right? Understand? Yes.
Except she doesn't come back with the others, because fuck them! Instead, after meeting up with Sean, Rennie, and fucking douchebag, they decide they gotta head out right the fuck now, and take a lifeboat to get the hell out of there. It's alright, Julius somehow survived, and Toby rematerialized back in the movie, so it's all good! Thus, they abandon the sinking ship, never bring up those other characters again, and drift off into the open waters. That is, until they see lights on the horizon.
Oh, shit. Check it out! Damn, we're in New York! You did it, man, you did it! We are in New York!
It's about time, we're only a goddamn hour into this movie, after all. Picking a rundown section of the city to dock in, they wind up wandering the streets of New York at night. Ah, well, they should be fine. Except when it comes to gravitating towards Crystal Lake or the oh-so-killable teenagers, Jason is attached to the kids like a fucking xenomorph in Alien Isolation. Before they run into Jason, though, they'll have to survive New York itself.
Give me your money. Everyone shut up and give him the money. Now! Give me money. Here.
I don't know what's more surprising to me. None of these fuckers had any self-defense weapons on them. Or these two guys saw 5 people and thought, yeah, easy pickings. Toby decides, fuck it, he's leading this movie again, while the muggers, Holmes and Jojo, played by Sam Sarkar and Michael Benyar, drag Rennie off for a good old-fashioned rape. Still, not really selling New York as much of a tourist destination. For some reason, they get off by injecting heroin into their victims. Because, well, because they can't show an actual rape here, so I guess this is a decent enough violation substitute. Fortunately, good guy Jason shows up to take care of this problem. Some say this is a silly goof. There's no way that tiny little needle could go all the way through the guy's back to poking through his chest like that. I mean, it's not like Jason ever jammed his bare fist through a man's torso before. Jojo realizes there's a problem with this big hulking murderer motherfucker, but it's nothing his 38 special can't fix. Or, maybe it is.
Shit.
Dude, 38 special doesn't kick all that much out of Model 15 anyway. But when you click and then act like the gun's kicking anyway... Seriously, fuck it. Jason, you know what to do. Oh shit, at this point, Jason Voorhees could pass for a superhero. He's done far less damage to the city than that asshole from Man of Steel. This does give Rennie the chance to escape, while her friends are still trying to get someone to help.
Operator, this is an emergency. Give me the police.
Oh, close enough, all things considered. Of course, as the miscreants are already dealt with, Jason just goes for Julius. This results in a short chase before Julius realizes he's not a parkour master, but a boxer. Thus he turns around and fights Jason off. Not positioning to knock him off the building or through a skylight or anything like that. No, just punching him until he tires himself out completely, giving Jason the chance to fight back. Good guy Jason reminding you all, don't litter. Eventually, Sean finds Rennie yet again, and they get back in contact with the adults. None of them know where Julius is, but that doesn't matter. They've got a police officer to help, played by Roger Barnes. He's so good at his job, Julius is already in the car.
Dispatch! Dispatch!
I know slasher villains can teleport, but sweet Jesus, Jason just goes hog wild with that ability in this movie. They can't open the car doors to escape, though, as it's a cop car. However, the writers forgot there's supposed to be a barricade between the back and the front, allowing them to drive away. Except it's Rennie driving, who then hallucinates, crashes, and barely escapes before the whole fucking thing explodes. Oh, yeah, Colleen was in there, too. Whoops. Either way, the nearby puddle finally allows her to remember what it is that has tormented her all these years. It seems Uncle Fucknugget here brought her out all alone to Crystal Lake one day. And no, don't worry, it doesn't go there, thankfully. He just regales the anachronistic tale of Jason Voorhees, hoping it will give her the inspiration to learn how to swim right quick.
Let's find out.
Now, it's funny how in movies, people who have no idea how to swim always seem so good at treading water. Problem is, Jason Voorhees is real and did try to pull her under. Yes, after he killed plenty of people when he grew up, making this whole thing very weird, but never mind that. Knowing this asshole was in fact an asshole all along, they part ways. Right when Jason catches up, so he runs away as fast as he can. Now, why stop there, Jason? If you're going to teleport into the building to throw him out a window, why not just blink and teleport right back out, catch him, and then, I don't know, rip him in half or something? Or hoist him over your shoulder, dunking the douche face first in a fucking fetid feces, allowing him to die the way he lived. Full of shit. But the kids don't know. So far as they think, they've made it out okay. And after pouring their hearts out to one another, they know everything's going to be fine. Except we still got like 15 minutes of movie left, so yeah. Not wanting to up the body count anymore, at this point Rennie and Sean run off to take the subway, which is the first time we see actual groups of people exist in New York. Oh, and Jason got on without a ticket. Think about it, would you ask him for one? The two survivors would like to remain survivors, though, and rush off towards the end of the train, pulling the emergency brake and slipping into the darkness. So he plans to fry his ass with the third rail. Okay? You do remember, this is Jason fucking Voorhees we're talking about here. And this is now the 4th time huge amounts of electricity have been coursing through his body. Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity? As luck would have it, they just so happen to stop abruptly in Times Square. Thus we can have our happy ending with them walking freely to see the sights. I feel like this whole movie was conceived just to have that one shot in there. I mean, it's a damn good shot, but man. Realizing the movie ain't over yet, they run off to find help. This being New York, however, all they find is sass and Northeast accents. Still, they try to slip out of the back of the diner, while the cook, played by Ken Kersinger, who was Jason in Freddy vs. Jason, attacks Kane Hodder.
Son of a bitch.
Well, you gotta admit, as much shit as this movie has given us, at least we got that out of it. Unfortunately, all the back alley doors are locked, but don't worry, this is New York, so there's an open manhole nearby. Movie New York, I mean. I know this wouldn't work out like this in reality, but the point is now they get to run through the sewers and into a sewage worker, played by David Longworth. He says they need to get out soon because it just so happens that the whole system floods with toxic waste every night at midnight. Yet still no Ninja Turtles. But then... What are you looking so shocked for, Rennie? You've had all movie to get used to this motherfucker's teleportation abilities. So Dave's fucked, but don't worry about Sean. It just so happens there's a spare bucket of toxic waste nearby, and Rennie learns that this is Jason Voorhees' one weakness. Yeah, he has a weakness now. This means when they go to escape and find out they can't, because the movie installed one of those locked grates you actually do have in New York, it's fine. The flood of toxic waste comes and eats away at Jason Voorhees, melting him down before their very eyes, and leaving the two meek mortals relatively unscathed. It turns Jason into a kid. It's said that originally the way it was scripted, it was supposed to completely disintegrate him and he would be dead and this would be the last movie. But then they figured, hey, we might eventually want to do a sequel, so do this! So we have an opening. Though I think it makes the sequel possibly harder to explain. But happy ending! Rennie and Sean survived. New York barely noticed what the fuck happened, and the dog decided, okay, all this shit's over with, I can come back into the movie now. Cheating bastard. You know, I know plenty of people who probably would have survived a slasher film if they could just walk out of frame every time the killer's around. But anyway, that was Friday the 13th, Part 8. Jason Takes a Ferry. Manhattan. And, it's got its moments, but man is it lacking in a lot of areas. The big obvious mark against it is while it sells itself as Jason Voorhees in New York, that's such a small part of the movie, it hardly feels like much beyond bookending. And that's just because of the awkward New York opening that plot-wise doesn't really fit. The meat of the movie is Jason on a boat, which honestly was interesting to see. Boats are claustrophobic and isolated and work pretty well as a stand-in for the classic old dark house. However, the awkward nature of several scenes on the boat that were clearly written with another location in mind took away from that a bit. When it comes to the cast of characters, nobody really stands out here. The deepest one is Rennie, of course, but her tragic childhood consisted of one event that was teased for over an hour, and after all we saw up to that point, really didn't feel like much to complain about. The rest of the characters were pretty flat with minimal motivations, and felt like kind of bare minimum acceptable performances. They weren't out and out horrible, but oh yes, there was certainly room for improvement. Overall, Friday the 13th Part 8 Jason Takes Manhattan is an interesting concept that obviously didn't get to be seen to fruition, but then fused into another interesting concept, and they keep things creative enough, mixing up the formula a bit along the way, but the low-budget effects and lack of memorable characters don't hold the movie up very well, coming in at 2 Jasons walking into a diner out of 5. The Jason makeup especially, in my opinion, it looked way better in Part 7 when he had the spine showing and part of the teeth and the fucking kneecaps exposed, and he didn't look like a fucking Cabbage Patch mummy. But, nevertheless, thank you all for watching. I've been Shado, and remember, if you have 4 legs, you're allowed to just walk out of the movie for 45 minutes and come back and see if everything's okay.